When I became successful, my parents blamed me for making my unemployed brother look bad. Instead of helping him improve, they tried to sabotage my job with lies to teach me humility. Nothing crazy fancy about my job, but I worked my way up from being a junior analyst straight out of college. My younger brother Nathan, 25 male, is well he exists. That's about the most impressive thing I can say about him without lying. Let me paint you a picture of how things have always been in my family. I'm the oldest kid. From day one, I was expected to be responsible, mature, and basically raise myself while my parents focused all their energy on Nathan, the golden child, the baby, the one who could do no wrong even when he was actively doing wrong. When we were kids, I'd get yelled at for leaving toys on the floor. Nathan would trash the entire living room, and my parents would just smile and say he was being creative. I had chores starting at age 7. Nathan didn't start doing chores until he was like 15. Birthdays were a joke. I'd get practical stuff, clothes I needed for school, a new backpack. Nathan would get the new gaming console, expensive sneakers, concert tickets. One year I got a graphing calculator for my birthday. I was 14. Nathan got a dirt bike for his 12th birthday. But you know what I learned to stop caring about the unfairness? I just put my head down and focused on what I could control. Studied hard, got good grades, worked part-time jobs starting at 16, saved every penny. My parents never helped me financially after I turned 18. Not with college, not with my first apartment, nothing. Meanwhile, Nathan got his tuition paid for, got a car handed to him, got his rent covered while he was in college. Speaking of college, I went to a solid state school on a partial academic scholarship I earned myself. Worked 20 hours a week, graduated in 4 years with a degree in finance and a 3.7 GPA. Nathan went 3 years later. My parents paid his full tuition. He changed his major 4 times, took 6 years to graduate with a degree in communications, and finished with like a 2.3 GPA. His graduation party had 100 people and a catered buffet. Mine was dinner at Olive Garden. After college, I started at my current company as a junior analyst making $42,000 a year. Lived in a crappy studio, drove a beat-up Honda Civic, ate ramen most nights, saved aggressively. Nathan bounced around between random retail jobs, quit half of them. He still lived at home, rent-free, driving the car my parents bought him. I worked my tail off, came in early, stayed late, took on extra projects, got promoted after 2 years to analyst, then 3 years after that to senior analyst. My salary jumped to $78,000. I moved into a decent 2-bedroom apartment in a nice complex with a gym and a pool. Bought myself a 3-year-old Mazda sedan that actually had working air conditioning and Bluetooth. Started building up my savings account. Nothing extravagant, just finally living like a normal adult instead of a broke college kid. Nathan was still at home at age 24, working part-time at a sporting goods store, making maybe $15,000 a year if he worked full weeks, which he rarely did. My parents didn't care. They weren't charging him rent. They were basically supporting a grown man who had zero ambition and spent most of his time playing video games and hanging out with his buddies. Last year, I bought my first house. Nothing crazy. A 3-bedroom ranch-style place in a decent suburb about 20 minutes from work. It needed some cosmetic updates, but the bones were solid. I saved up for the down payment myself. Got pre-approved for a mortgage. Handled the whole process solo. It was huge for me. First major adult milestone I'd achieved completely on my own. When I told my parents I'd closed on the house, their response was lukewarm at best. My mom said, "That's nice, honey," like I just told her I bought new socks. My dad asked if I was sure I could handle the mortgage payment. Zero congratulations, zero excitement, zero pride in what their son had accomplished. But you know what really stung? 2 days after I told them about buying my house, Nathan mentioned he was thinking about maybe looking at apartments eventually someday, and my parents fell all over themselves offering to help him with rent, offering to co-sign a lease, talking about how exciting it would be for him to have his own place. He hadn't even looked at apartments. He was just thinking about it, and they were ready to finance his entire move. The tipping point came 3 months ago at a family dinner. We do these once a month at my parents' house. It's usually pretty boring. We eat whatever my mom made, make small talk about nothing important, and I leave as soon as it's socially acceptable. This particular dinner, my Uncle Richard was there with my Aunt Paula. Uncle Richard asked how work was going, and I mentioned I'd just gotten another raise, was now making $92,000 a year. I wasn't bragging, just answering his direct question. My uncle was impressed. Asked more questions about my job, what I did, what the company was like. Normal conversation stuff. I talked about a big project I'd led that saved the company a bunch of money, how I'd been getting positive feedback from the executives, how I was being considered for a manager position opening up next year. Nathan sat there the whole time, looking like someone peed in his cereal. He got quieter and quieter, barely touched his food, kept checking his phone. My parents noticed and kept shooting me these looks like I was doing something wrong by having a normal conversation with my uncle. After dinner, my uncle and aunt left and I was helping clear the table when my mom pulled me aside. She had this serious expression that immediately put me on edge. "Can I talk to you for a minute?" she asked, leading me into the living room. My dad and Nathan stayed in the kitchen. "Sure, what's up?" I asked, genuinely confused about what could be so important. My mom folded her hands in her lap and gave me this look like she was about to deliver bad news. "I need you to understand something. The way you talked about your job tonight, it made Nathan feel really bad about himself." I actually laughed because I thought she was joking. She wasn't smiling. "Wait, you're serious?" I asked. "Yes. Nathan is going through a hard time right now trying to figure out his career path. He doesn't need to hear about how successful you are. It just makes him feel worse about where he is in life." I stared at her. "Uncle Richard asked me about work." I was answering his question. "You could have been more modest about it. You didn't need to go into so much detail about your raise and your promotion prospects. You know Nathan's struggling. Nathan's struggling because he works 15 hours a week at a retail job and lives at home for free," I said, trying to keep my voice level. "That's not my fault. That's exactly the kind of attitude I'm talking about." My mom said, her voice getting sharper. "You need to be more sensitive to your brother's feelings. Not everyone is as career-driven as you are. Some people need more time to find their path. He's 25, Mom. He's had plenty of time, and I'm not going to apologize for working hard and being successful." She sighed like I was being difficult. "I'm just asking you to maybe tone it down a little bit. When we have family gatherings, you don't need to talk about your accomplishments so much. It creates tension." Creates tension. Me answering questions truthfully creates tension. "You're making your brother feel inadequate," she said flatly. "I'm asking you as his older brother to be more considerate. Is that really so much to ask?" I sat there processing what she was actually saying. My own mother was asking me to hide my success to protect my adult brother's feelings. Not encourage him to do better, not push him to get his life together, just make sure I didn't remind him that he was going nowhere by being visibly successful myself. "So what do you want me to do?" I asked. "Lie about my job, pretend I work at a gas station, quit and work part-time retail, so Nathan doesn't feel bad?" "Don't be dramatic," my mom snapped. "I'm just asking for some discretion, some humility. You don't need to constantly remind everyone how well you're doing." I mentioned it once because Uncle Richard directly asked me. "That's not constantly reminding anyone." "Well, it was uncomfortable for Nathan, and I'd appreciate it if you'd be more thoughtful going forward." I stood up. "I'm going to head out. You're leaving already? We haven't had dessert yet." "Yeah, I think I'm done here," I said, grabbing my jacket from the coat rack. My dad came out from the kitchen. "Everything okay?" "Just great," I said. "Mom just told me I'm too successful, and it hurts Nathan's feelings, so I should probably hide my accomplishments from now on." Real supportive stuff. My dad's face did this weird thing where I could tell he knew exactly what my mom had said, and agreed with her, but didn't want to admit it out loud. "Your mother's just trying to keep the peace by asking me to pretend I'm not doing well." "That's keeping the peace." "Nobody's asking you to pretend anything," my dad said, but his tone said otherwise. "We just think it might be better if you were a little less vocal about your career." Vocal. Right, got it. I headed for the door. Nathan appeared from the kitchen looking smug as hell. He knew exactly what had just gone down and was eating it up. Later, I said to no one in particular, and left. I sat in my car for a few minutes processing how messed up that interaction was. My parents weren't proud of me. They saw my success as a problem. The next week, I volunteered to lead 2 more high-profile projects at work. Stayed late, came in on Saturdays, put together presentations that were some of my best work. Started networking more aggressively, positioning myself for management. At the next family dinner, I talked about everything I was working on. My mom's face got tighter with every word. Nathan excused himself halfway through. My dad tried to change the subject twice. 2 weeks later, I found out I'd gotten the manager promotion. My new title was finance manager, and my salary jumped to $112,000. I was over the moon. This was huge. This was everything I'd worked toward. I called my parents to tell them. My mom answered. Hey, Mom. I got some great news. I got promoted to manager. Pretty big raise, too. Silence on the other end. Mom, that's good, honey. Is Dad there? I wanted to tell him, too. He's busy right now. I'll let him know. Okay. Well, yeah, I'm really excited about it. It's a big step up. Mm-hmm. More silence. All right. Well, I should get going. Just wanted to share the news. Okay, bye. She hung up before I could say bye back. That was my mom's reaction to the biggest career achievement of my life so far. That's good, honey, and then basically hanging up on me. Whatever. I didn't need their validation. I'd never needed it before. Wasn't going to start now. The following month at family dinner, I showed up in the new car. I just leased, a really nice Audi sedan. Nathan was outside when I pulled up. His face when he saw the car was priceless. Dinner was tense. Nobody asked me about work or the car. My Uncle Richard asked about the Audi, and I told him about it. My parents looked like they wanted to be anywhere else. After dinner, I was getting ready to leave when my mom followed me outside to my car. We need to talk, she said, arms crossed. About what? This needs to stop, she said, gesturing vaguely at my car, and apparently my entire existence. You're rubbing your success in Nathan's face. I drove a car to a family dinner. That's rubbing it in his face. You knew he'd see it. You knew it would make him feel bad. You could have driven your old car? I actually laughed out loud. You want me to drive a worse car so my brother doesn't feel bad about himself? Are you hearing yourself right now? I'm hearing a son who's become arrogant and inconsiderate, she shot back. You're not the person I raised. The person you raised, Mom. You barely raised me. You were too busy making sure Nathan had everything he ever wanted while I scraped by on my own. I worked for everything I have, every single thing. And now that I'm finally doing well, you want me to hide it because Nathan can't handle the fact that he's accomplished nothing. Her face went red. How dare you speak to me that way? I'm speaking the truth. Nathan's going nowhere because you and Dad have enabled him his entire life. He has no ambition, no work ethic, no drive because he's never had to develop any of those things. You've given him everything and expected nothing. That's not my fault. Nathan is going through a difficult time, she said, voice shaking. He's trying to figure things out. The last thing he needs is his brother flaunting his success every chance he gets. I'm not flaunting anything. I'm living my life. If that makes Nathan uncomfortable, he should probably do something about his own life instead of expecting me to pretend mine isn't going well. You've changed, she said quietly. You used to be humble. I used to be invisible. I corrected her. There's a difference. I got in my car and drove home, leaving her standing in the driveway. The next few weeks were quiet. I didn't hear from my parents except for the standard monthly reminder about the upcoming family dinner. I almost didn't go, but I figured, why let them run me off from the family? Plus, my Uncle Richard was cool, and I actually enjoyed talking to him. The dinner started normally. My mom was cold but civil. My dad barely acknowledged me. Nathan looked miserable as usual. Uncle Richard asked how the new job was going, and I told him it was great. I was managing a team of 3 analysts, now working on even bigger projects, getting to present directly to the CFO regularly. My mom excused herself from the table and went to her room. My dad gave me a dirty look like I'd said something terrible. I'd literally just answered a question about my job. Whatever. I finished dinner, talked with my uncle about some investment strategies he was curious about, and left around 8. That's when things took a really weird turn. 2 days later, I got called into my boss's office first thing in the morning. His name is Glenn, and he's usually a pretty laid-back guy, but when I walked in, he looked uncomfortable. Close the door, he said. I sat down, heart starting to race a little. This didn't feel like a normal meeting. I got a very strange phone call yesterday afternoon, Glenn said, leaning back in his chair. From a woman claiming to be your mother. My stomach dropped. What? She called the main office line, got transferred around until she reached me, said she was your mother and had some concerns she needed to discuss about your behavior at work. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. What kind of concerns? Glenn sighed. She claimed you'd been bragging to family members about stealing credit for other people's work, said you'd been lying about your accomplishments, and that we should know you're not actually responsible for the success you've been claiming. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. That's completely false. Every single thing I've worked on is documented. Every project, every presentation, every deliverable. You know that. You've reviewed all of it. I know, Glenn said. That's why this was such a bizarre call. She also claimed you'd been harassing coworkers and creating a hostile work environment, which is obviously not true because we've had zero complaints about you. If anything, your team loves working with you. I can't believe she called my work, I said, genuinely shocked. Why would she do that? Glenn shrugged. I was hoping you could tell me. She seemed very convinced you were misrepresenting yourself, said she was concerned the company was being deceived. I didn't even know how to finish that sentence. My own mother called my boss to try to sabotage my career because my success made her other son feel bad. Look, Glenn said I told her we had no concerns about your performance and that all our employees' work is thoroughly documented and reviewed. She didn't seem satisfied with that answer and implied she might escalate to someone higher up. I wanted to give you a heads up in case she tries to contact our HR department or someone in the executive team. I'm so sorry, I said. This is completely out of line and inappropriate. I'll handle it. Do you need to take some personal time to deal with family stuff? Glenn asked, and I could tell he was genuinely concerned. No, I'm fine. I'll make sure this doesn't happen again. For what it's worth, Glenn said, as I stood to leave, you're one of our strongest performers. Whatever family drama is happening, it doesn't reflect on your work here. Everyone knows the quality of what you produce. I thanked him and went back to my desk, but I couldn't focus on anything. I kept replaying the conversation in my head. My mother had actually called my workplace to try to destroy my career. This wasn't just asking me to tone down my success. This was active sabotage. I waited until lunch to call her. She answered on the third ring. Hi, honey. Did you call my boss? I cut her off. Silence. Answer me. Did you call my workplace and tell them I was lying about my work? I don't know what you're talking about, she said, but her voice wavered. Yes, you do. My boss told me about your phone call, about how you claimed I was stealing credit and harassing people, about how you tried to get me fired. I didn't try to get you fired, she said defensively. I just thought they should know the truth about how you really act. The truth. What truth? That I work hard and do my job well. That's the truth. Everything I've accomplished is real and documented. You tried to sabotage me with lies. You've been insufferable lately, she snapped, constantly bragging, showing off, making Nathan feel terrible about himself. Someone needed to knock you down a few pegs. So you tried to get me fired. That was your solution. Call my employer with made-up accusations. They weren't made up. You've been taking credit for things. Stop lying, I said, my voice getting louder. You don't know anything about my work. You don't know what I do or what I've accomplished because you've never bothered to ask. You just decided that because Nathan's life isn't going anywhere, mine shouldn't either. That's not fair, she said, voice getting shrill. I'm your mother. I was trying to teach you some humility by trying to destroy my career. That's not teaching humility. That's sabotage. You know what? We're done. Don't call me. Don't contact my work again. Don't show up at my house. We're done. You can't talk to me that way. I'm your mother and you're supposed to be proud of your son when he succeeds, not try to tear him down because it hurts your favorite's feelings. Lose my number. I hung up before she could respond. My hands were shaking. I'd never spoken to my parents like that before, never stood up to them so directly, but enough was enough. She'd crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. My phone started ringing immediately. My mom, then my dad, then my mom again. I declined every call, then the text started. Mom, you're being ridiculous. Call me back so we can discuss this like adults. Dad, your mother is very upset. This is no way to treat your parents. Nathan? Dude? What did you say to Mom? She's crying. I blocked all 3 numbers. The rest of that week was weird. I kept expecting my mom to show up at my office or call Glenn again, but nothing happened. I stayed focused on work, tried to push the whole mess out of my mind. Friday afternoon, my Uncle Richard called me. We'd exchanged numbers a few months back when he wanted some financial advice. Hey, got a minute? He asked. Yeah, what's up? I heard about what happened with your mom calling your work. Your dad told me about it last night. Oh, great. So everyone knows now. Just me and your aunt, he said. And for what it's worth, I think what your mom did was completely out of line, like way over the line. Thanks, I said, surprised to hear someone in the family actually say that. I tried talking to them about it, Richard continued. Told them they were being ridiculous about this whole situation with you and Nathan. Your mom just kept saying you'd become arrogant and needed to be brought down. Your dad backed her up. It was uncomfortable. That's pretty much been my life for the past few months, I said. Well, I wanted you to know that Paula and I don't see it that way. We think you've done an amazing job building your career. We're proud of you, even if your parents can't be. I felt my throat get tight. I appreciate that, really. And between you and me, Richard said, lowering his voice like someone might overhear, Nathan needs to get his act together. The kid's 25 years old, living at home with no real job or ambition. Your parents aren't doing him any favors by enabling his laziness. Try telling them that I said. I have multiple times, they don't want to hear it. They've convinced themselves that Nathan's going to figure things out any day now and become hugely successful and that you're just temporarily ahead. It's delusional. We talked for a few more minutes before hanging up. It felt good to have at least one family member who wasn't completely disconnected from reality. Monday morning, I walked into work expecting a normal day. Instead, Glenn called me into his office again before I even got to my desk. We need to talk, he said, and I felt that same stomach drop sensation from the previous week. Did my mom call again? I asked as I sat down. No, but our HR director got an email from her on Friday. A long email detailing multiple accusations about your behavior, your work performance, claiming you're a fraud who's been manipulating management. It was honestly kind of unhinged. You've got to be kidding me. I wish I was, Glenn said. HR forwarded it to me and asked me to address it. I had to pull your entire performance file document, every project you've worked on, compile all the positive feedback from your team and from other departments. Basically had to prove that you're not making up your accomplishments. I'm so sorry, I said, mortified. This is completely insane. I don't know why she's doing this. The HR director wants to meet with you tomorrow. Nothing to worry about. It's just standard procedure when we get complaints. You're not in trouble. We just need to document everything formally in case your mother escalates this further. Escalates to what? Glenn shrugged. I don't know. Maybe legal action. She mentioned in her email that she was considering contacting an attorney about your fraudulent behavior. It's all pretty wild. I met with HR the next day. The director, Lisa, was incredibly understanding. I explained the family situation, how my mother was upset about my success because it made my younger brother feel inadequate, how she'd first asked me to hide my accomplishments and then tried to sabotage my career when I refused. Lisa took notes, asked clarifying questions, and then showed me a printed copy of the email my mom had sent. It was 3 pages long, single-spaced, filled with accusations that ranged from exaggerated to completely fabricated. She claimed I'd lied about leading projects that I'd actually just participated in. False. I had documentation proving I was the lead on every project I'd claimed. She claimed I'd taken credit for other analysts' work. False. My team members had all submitted feedback praising my leadership and giving me credit for my contributions. She claimed I'd manipulated metrics to make my performance look better. False. All metrics were verified and reviewed by multiple levels of management. She claimed I'd been rude and dismissive to coworkers. False. I had dozens of positive peer reviews and 0 complaints filed against me. It went on and on. Every accusation was completely unfounded and easily disproven. But the fact that my own mother had spent the time to write this elaborate hit piece against me was disturbing. I need to ask, Lisa said carefully. Is there any truth to any of these accusations, even partially? No, I said firmly. None of it. You can verify everything I've said, check with my team, check with other departments, look at all my project documentation, it's all there. Lisa nodded. We did. That's why this meeting is so straightforward. If there was even a hint of truth to these claims, we'd be having a very different conversation. But everything checks out completely. You're a model employee. So what happens now, I asked. I'm going to send your mother a formal response explaining that we've investigated her claims and found them to be without merit. I'll also inform her that any further contact regarding this matter will be considered harassment and will take appropriate action. That should hopefully put an end to it. Thank you, I said, genuinely relieved. For what it's worth, Lisa added, family dynamics can be really complicated. I'm sorry you're dealing with this. It's clear your mother's behavior stems from personal issues that have nothing to do with your actual performance here. I left the HR office feeling both validated and exhausted. This whole situation was so much more draining than I'd anticipated. That evening, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Hello! Is this going to be your response to everything, just ignoring your family and pretending we don't exist? My dad calling from a different phone since I'd blocked his cell. I'm not pretending you don't exist. I'm cutting contact with people who tried to sabotage my career. Your mother made a mistake, he said. She was emotional and upset. She didn't mean most of what she wrote. She wrote 3 pages of lies to my HR department. Dad, 3 pages. That's not emotional. That's calculated. She's apologetic now. Good for her. Still doesn't change anything. You're really going to cut off your entire family over this? He asked, voice rising. Over your mother trying to teach you some humility. Trying to get me fired isn't teaching humility, it's sabotage. And yeah, I'm cutting off the people who think my success is a problem that needs to be solved. Nathan's having a really hard time with all of this, Dad said, changing tactics. He feels like you've abandoned the family. I almost laughed. Nathan's having a hard time. Nathan, who lives rent-free in your house at age 25 with a part-time job and 0 ambition. That, Nathan. He's going through a transition period. He's been going through a transition period for 7 years. I interrupted. At some point, it's not a transition, it's just his life. And that's not my problem. You used to care about your family, Dad said quietly. I still care about the family members who are happy for my success instead of trying to destroy it, which at this point is basically just Uncle Richard. You're being selfish and cruel. I'm being successful and it makes you uncomfortable. Not the same thing. I hung up and blocked that number too. The next few weeks were blissfully quiet. No calls from my parents, no emails to my workplace, no unexpected visits. I threw myself into work, continued excelling at my job, and started actually enjoying my life without the constant undercurrent of family drama. Then Uncle Richard called again. Hey, just wanted to give you an update on the family situation, he said. Do I want to hear this? I asked. Probably not, but you should know anyway. Your mom's been telling people you've cut off the family for no reason. She's playing the victim hard, says you rejected her help and guidance, and now you won't speak to her. Her help and guidance being trying to get me fired. She's not mentioning that part, Richard said dryly. She's spinning it like she gave you some constructive feedback about being more humble and you overreacted by cutting everyone off. Of course she is. Your dad's backing her up completely. Nathan's telling people you're jealous of his relationship with your parents, and that's why you stopped coming around. It's all pretty twisted. Let them spin it however they want, I said. The people who matter know the truth. That's what I told Paula, Richard said. We're not buying their version of events. Paula actually told your mom off last week at some family thing, said, what she did was inexcusable and that you had every right to cut contact. Your mom didn't appreciate that. I bet she didn't. Just wanted you to know that you've got support here, Richard said, even if your parents are being ridiculous. We talked for a bit longer before hanging up. It was validating to know at least 2 family members saw the situation clearly. A month later, something interesting happened. I got promoted again, this time to senior finance manager with an even bigger raise, $135,000 a year. It came out of nowhere, honestly. The VP of finance called me into his office and told me they were creating a new senior manager role, and I was their first choice for it. The new position came with a bigger office, a small team of managers reporting to me, and significantly more responsibility. It was a huge leap forward in my career. I didn't tell my parents, didn't call them, didn't text them, nothing. What would be the point? They'd already made it clear my success was an inconvenience to them. But I did tell Uncle Richard when he called to check in. No way. That's amazing, he said, genuinely excited. Senior manager at 28. Dude, you're killing it. Thanks, I said, grinning. It's been a good year career-wise. Your parents are going to lose their minds when they find out, Richard said with a laugh, especially since Nathan just got fired from the sporting goods store for showing up late too many times. Wait, seriously? Yep. Happened last week. He's back to being fully unemployed. Your mom's already making excuses about how the manager had it out for him and the job wasn't a good fit anyway. So nothing's changed then? Nope. Still enabling him, still refusing to acknowledge he needs to grow up. Meanwhile, you're out here absolutely crushing it in the real world. We talked for a while longer, catching up on life. After hanging up, I sat in my new office, which had an actual window, A nice desk and real furniture instead of the basic setup I'd had before, and felt genuinely proud of myself. My parents had tried to stop me from succeeding. They'd asked me to hide my accomplishments, and when I wouldn't, they'd actively tried to sabotage my career. And despite all of that, I'd succeeded anyway, even more than before. The promotion came with new responsibilities that kept me busy for the next 2 months. I was managing 3 other managers now, overseeing major projects, presenting to the executive team regularly. It was intense, but rewarding. During one of our regular check-ins, Uncle Richard mentioned that my parents were asking about me. "They want to know if you've called me, if I know how you're doing," he said. "I think they're trying to get information through me since you blocked them." "What did you tell them? That you're doing great? And that's all they need to know. Your mom tried to press for details, but I shut that down. Told her if she wanted to know how you were doing, she shouldn't have tried to destroy your career." How'd she respond to that? Got all defensive, started crying about how she was just trying to help you, how you've changed and become arrogant. Same song, different day. Your dad looked uncomfortable but didn't say anything to contradict her. And Nathan's still unemployed, still living at home. Your mom mentioned something about him thinking about starting a podcast, whatever that means. I had to laugh at that one. A podcast? Sure, that'll solve all his problems, right? Richard chuckled. But hey, at least he's thinking about something, I guess. 3 months after cutting off contact with my parents and Nathan, I got a letter in the mail. Physical mail, not email. It was from my mother, written in her distinctive loopy handwriting. I debated throwing it away without reading it, but curiosity won out. I opened it. The letter was 5 pages long. 5 pages of my mother explaining how hurt she was by my behavior, how she'd only been trying to help me stay grounded, how cutting off the family was cruel and unnecessary. She wrote about how much they all missed me, how Nathan was struggling with my absence, how the family wasn't complete without me. Nowhere in those 5 pages did she apologize for calling my workplace. Nowhere did she acknowledge that her actions had been inappropriate. Nowhere did she take any responsibility for the situation. Instead, the last page suggested that if I apologized for overreacting and promised to be more considerate of Nathan's feelings going forward, we could move past this unfortunate incident and be a family again. I read it twice just to make sure I wasn't misunderstanding. Nope, she wanted me to apologize to her. I took a photo of the letter and texted it to Uncle Richard with the caption, "You seeing this?" He called me 5 minutes later. "Is she serious? She wants you to apologize." "Apparently, I overreacted to her trying to get me fired," I said. "And if I just admit that and promise to hide my success better, we can all be one happy family again." "That's delusional," Richard said, like genuinely disconnected from reality. "That's my family," I said. "What are you going to do?" "Nothing. I'm going to do absolutely nothing." No response, no phone call, no acknowledgement. She doesn't get to dictate the terms of reconciliation after what she did. "Good," Richard said firmly. "Stick to your guns. You don't owe them anything." I threw the letter away and didn't think about it again. Well, I tried not to think about it. It was hard not to feel a little hurt that my own mother was so incapable of admitting wrongdoing. Life continued. Work was great. I was excelling in my new role, getting positive feedback from everyone, building strong relationships with the executive team. My personal life was good too. I was dating someone I really liked, hanging out with friends regularly, enjoying my house and my nice car, and the financial security I'd worked so hard to achieve. About 6 months after cutting contact, Uncle Richard called with some interesting news. "So Nathan moved out," he said. "No kidding. Where'd he go?" "Got an apartment with 2 roommates. Your parents are covering his rent, obviously, but at least he's not living at home anymore. That's something, I guess." "Yeah, except he apparently told people he was moving out because the house was too depressing without you there, and he needed a fresh start." I had to laugh at that. "So he's making it about me somehow." "Yup. Can't just be that he's finally taking a tiny step toward independence at age 25. Has to be because you abandoned the family and made the house sad. Unbelievable. Your mom's also been telling people that you've refused all her attempts at reconciliation. She's got a whole narrative going about how she's tried everything to reach out to you, but you're being stubborn and refusing to forgive her for one small mistake. One small mistake being trying to get me fired. She's really downplaying that part in her version, making it sound like she called with some concerns and you flew off the handle. Of course she is. Paula and I have corrected the story where we can. Richard said, but you know how it goes. People believe what they want to believe. I don't really care what people believe at this point, I said honestly. The people who matter know the truth. That's the right attitude, Richard agreed. A year after cutting contact, I got a wedding invitation from a cousin on my mom's side. Uncle Richard warned me my parents would be there. IRSVPD yes, with my girlfriend. The wedding was interesting. My parents were in the second pew. Nathan slouched between them. My mom saw me and started whispering urgently to my dad. I nodded in their direction and found seats across the church. The ceremony was nice. At the reception, I made my rounds, chatted with relatives. Multiple people asked what I'd been up to. I kept my answers brief but honest about work going well. My mom was glaring at me all night. About an hour in, she approached me at the bar. "Can we talk?" she asked. "There's nothing to talk about," I said calmly. "You can't avoid me forever. I'm your mother. I'm not avoiding you, but I'm not having a conversation about reconciliation until you actually apologize." "I sent you a letter," she said. "That letter asked me to apologize to you." "That's not the same thing." Her face flushed red. "You're being unreasonable." "I made one mistake. Trying to get me fired wasn't one mistake. Calling my workplace was one mistake. Emailing my HR department with 3 pages of lies was a second mistake. I was trying to help you," she insisted. "By sabotaging my career, that's help. You were becoming arrogant. Someone needed to humble you. And there it is. You still think you were right. Until that changes, we have nothing to talk about." I walked away. My mom didn't approach me again, but I caught her crying later. The rest of the evening was actually enjoyable. When my parents left early, the atmosphere got lighter. 2 years after cutting contact with my parents, I'm now 30 years old, and a director of finance got promoted again 6 months ago, now making $170,000 a year. I bought a bigger house in a nicer neighborhood, upgraded to a newer Audi, and started actually enjoying the fruits of my labor instead of constantly worrying about money. I'm still with the same girlfriend from the wedding, and we're talking about getting engaged soon. Life is genuinely good. Uncle Richard keeps me updated on the family. Nathan's still bouncing between jobs at 27, still living in the apartment my parents pay for. My parents are still making excuses for him. My mom still asks Richard about me. He gives her the bare minimum. He said she cried when she found out about my most recent promotion. Not happy tears, upset tears. My dad's tried reaching out through other relatives with casual tell him to call me messages that I've ignored. He's never acknowledged what my mom did was wrong.